Just understand. We are Jambo Radio! Jambo Radio, inspiring transformation.
Welcome, one and all. It's another fabulous Wednesday, and we are back with the Property and Investment Show. My name is Anthony, social entrepreneur. My co-host,
Vale Twamboy, property consultant, and we have a guest today.
Our regular guest now. This is the second time. This is the second time, and he's back with us. Will you let him introduce himself?
Yeah, Johnny Williams, Bricks and Mortar Mortgages. Pick up the phone, start packing.
Bricks and mortar. We are here to build. We're not even joking. Bricks and mortar. Those are the basic things you need. Yeah, brick by brick. We're gonna have an amazing show.
Yep.
We are back again to speak about all that makes you not get into your first property. Anything you have for us, questions, Jonathan is here to answer. You don't have to be an expert. You actually have an expert in studio. You need to not be shy to ask all those teeny bits of questions that you have about what's stopping you to get into your first property. Violet, let's start with you. What has stopped you from getting into your first property? I'm putting you on the spot right now.
I know. I'm like, wow.
I'm not telling you that was coming.
I know. For me, it starts from even credit score. Yeah. Getting credit searched. There's a lot of things I don't know about that.
Yeah.
That was one of the major topics we discussed about last time, and everyone was asking how it goes.
Yeah.
So we need to delve into that. I'm just curious. What has stopped you?
What makes you think that anything has stopped me?
Okay, so you are getting into your first property.
Maybe
so these are two experts. Then I think I'm with the listeners here. I'm the curious one. Let's start with credit score.
Yeah,
I think that's the most basic. I've seen a post today by Jonathan.
Yeah,
and he said on the post, before you even contact me, please. Have you checked your
credit score?
Why is that so
But
important?
it's not just checking it once.
Yeah.
You've got to check it regularly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you need to know that your direct debits are being paid, and one of the worst things that you can do is not look at it. Okay. I'll give you a couple of examples.
Okay.
We had a client just last week, and they went off to Australia. And it was a SIM card. It was £8. £8 a month she was paying for her SIM card.
Yeah.
Vodafone got bought over by O2, or O2 got bought over by Vodafone.
Yeah.
So her direct debit changed from Vodafone to O2.
Yeah.
And so when she saw it was O2, she thought, well, I'm not paying that because my payment was going out to Vodafone.
Yeah.
So she thought it was a bit of a scam. She hadn't appreciated that they had changed.
Yeah.
And so she stopped. She cancelled it.
Yeah.
She missed 2 payments.
Yeah.
We applied with a lender, and they said, no, you failed the credit report. You've paid you've failed the credit score. We can't get you a mortgage for £8.
Wow.
Now, luckily enough, we've been able to appeal that.
Yeah.
And there are ways and means, but that takes time, and time for a lot of people who are buying property is against them, because they put the offer in and they've got between 6 and 8 weeks to get over the line to get the money. And if you put things like an issue with your credit report, that can knock you back weeks. So credit report, absolutely key. With another guy, again, a lot of these things are not your major payments. It's not like your car payment of 200 quid. It's not like your furniture payment that is going to be paid over 4 years. It's the tricky stuff, like utility bills.
The small stuff.
Say, for example, you rented a property and there was 3 of you in the property, but you were the one who was responsible for paying the utility bills. But you then leave and you say to everybody else, listen, and you trust them, and you say, listen, could you deal with the utility bills? They don't pay the utility bills. The utility bills can come back and bite you. We had a similar circumstance where the guy was working overseas, didn't have great internet access, £55. Saw this on his credit report, £55, didn't pay it, and then before you knew it, the utility company who he owed the money to had sold the debt to a debt collection agency, and he'd got a bad credit. And again, we applied for the mortgage. This came up, and they refused the credit. So it is absolutely, I cannot express to you how important this is.
Yeah.
And you can get a credit report, not going to cost you anything.
Yeah.
My advice is go to check my file, check my file.
Yeah.
And you can sign up, give them your bank details, credit card, and you can get a month, 28 days of a free trial.
Yeah.
Just get the credit report, look at it, and then cancel it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you're wanting to look at it on a regular basis, then the likes of Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, they all offer free credit reports where you can go in on a weekly basis and just keep track and just make sure what you're looking for, green ticks. We like green ticks. Numbers, that ain't so good. If you start seeing numbers on your credit report, that means that you've missed a payment. So if you see the number 1 on your credit report, that's you missed 1 payment. 2 payments missed, 3 payments. And when you get up to 5 or 6, that's not good. We don't want that. We don't want that, please.
And if somebody gets maybe to 6, how much time do they have to correct that?
So the problem is, that stays in your file for 6 years. 6 years. So anytime you're looking for credit, they're always looking back on that. Now, you can start to repair that very quickly. But it might take you, dependent upon how much you are, it depends on the type of that missed payment and how much that missed payment is. If that's a missed payment in terms of your mortgage and you're looking to get another mortgage, that's not good. And sometimes lenders will allow you maybe 1 missed payment in terms of your mortgage. But once it gets to 2, then that is meaning that any future mortgages that you're looking to get quite soon is going to be problematic to get that.
Okay. And you mentioned something about utility bills,
Yes.
So if somebody, say you had a lodger in your house, right? Or you had a cousin or a friend live with you, and they had their mail coming to your house, and sometimes maybe they registered a company in your name, right? And then they left, and maybe the company is doing poorly or is performing, poorly, or is doing, whatever, their credit score for the company is basically bad. Does that affect you, the owner of the house?
No, it shouldn't. Because as long as you've not contracted with a company that you owe money to, then the fact that somebody has registered a company on your address, it shouldn't. And if you've got nothing to do with that company, if you're not a shareholder or a director, then it shouldn't have
an impact on your credit score.
It shouldn't have an impact
on the
same.
I'm guessing that's a postcode as well. On the same, I used to work at a bank. I got a call and somebody needed just to be sent something to but the address that we held at the bank versus the address they've been holding, they've moved a couple of times now. And then the person was very adamant, I better leave that or send it to just a faraway address, I'll find it, rather than change my address there. It's gonna affect my credit score. I don't know why or how. So they didn't want to change the credit, the postcode they've held with the bank for a while. So they didn't want the bank to have a new location that I've moved or like something of the sort. They didn't want that at all. Although they had actually moved because they used to maybe stay with the parent. Now it's been 6 years. They still want to use that address because they said because I have to change this address to send you a card.
That happens from time to time when kids go off to university, and when they're off for university, they may be there for 4 years. And they'll maybe be changing address every year.
Exactly.
And so what they tend to do is they'll maybe tend to keep their important stuff like their banking with their parents' address.
Yes.
That's probably what happens there. But listen, if I was going off to uni now and I was needing to get some electricity or gas, my name's not going in that bill. I'm telling you that now. Get one of your pals to take the responsibility. It's what I would be doing. Because once they get your name, and you're having to pay, you're then relying upon
other people.
Yeah. And even if you say that you're moving, you're then relying upon that company updating their information.
Yeah.
And then
on the same journey, see if somebody has missed payments on their, say, electricity or gas bill, right?
Yeah.
But the bill, maybe after 6 months, 7 months, is still not been taken to, like, what are they called?
A credit agency. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Does that still affect the person?
It will do if you've contracted to pay and receive the electricity, the gas, whatever.
Yeah.
Then you are legally bound to make that payment.
Yeah. Okay. So it still affects you whether it's gone to the creditors or not.
Yeah.
Good.
And if you have an arrangement with the said, if you're maybe in arrears, but you have an arrangement that you're still paying up.
Yeah, but again, the fact that you've got an arrangement is
means
between
that
you and the
provider.
The provider,
Yeah.
but it still has a detrimental effect in terms of your the credit score with that, because they will still see that you're in arrears.
Yeah.
As soon as you have paid off all of your arrears, then the numbers will stop going up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc.
Yeah.
What's a good credit score? Just in general?
So they say it's out of 1,000. So 999 is your absolutely
the best you can get.
Absolutely. So when I see a credit report, right, I always ask, give me a credit report. And if I see a credit report that's starting, and I ask the clients, I say to them, listen, what's your credit? Is it good, bad, indifferent? And nobody says they've got bad credit.
Yeah.
Nobody says that.
Yeah.
And if they say it's indifferent, I'm thinking, oh dear, there's something wrong here. Yeah. Anyway, I say, I get the report, and if the report comes in, and if it's under 700, then there's something that's happened in the past.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the times, if the clients say that they've got a great credit history, but they haven't looked at it, that's probably, and it's at 700, that's probably a utility bill that they've not paid, or a mobile phone company that they've not paid.
Okay.
But I think once you start looking at 700, unless you've got a big deposit, then if you've got a credit score around about 700, there's something wrong there that the lenders will want to know about, for sure.
What if, I'm not sure, I don't know how the credit actually even starts, coming fresh off the boat, coming to this country, you don't have credit. First thing, you need to register to vote.
Yes.
Get your first maybe SIM card, start having a bill that you actually need to pay monthly.
Yep. Get a bank account. Yeah.
Third thing is like get a phone or get another bill that you're actually paying.
There's talk of what's a good idea is getting a credit card. So if you've just arrived in the country, or you've just come out of school and you've got your first job, etc., maybe a good idea to get a credit card with a very low limit, so you don't start maxing that out. But what I would do is I would agree with yourself that if you've got a car, the only thing I'm going to put on that is petrol, and I'm going to pay it off
with this
every month. The most important thing that you do is that you use the card, but you need to make payments every month. You need to make sure, ideally, that the whole credit is paid off on a monthly basis. And if you can't do that, make the minimum payment. But the problem is that as soon as the lenders see that you're taking credit and you're not paying it off
that month,
that's probably not a good sign, because they're giving you a huge amount of money to be paid every month over 25 years. And if you can't pay a flipping petrol bill of 60 quid every month, why would they give you any money? So get a credit card, make sure you don't max it out, and pay it off on a monthly basis. And that slowly but surely will build up the credit file. And it takes time.
Yeah, it does,
But get on the electoral roll. That's really important.
Get yourself on the electoral
roll. A lot of the lenders, somebody like Nationwide Building Society, they will take great store in the fact that you've got on the electoral roll, for sure.
And people should know that in this country, your basically almost everybody is eligible to get onto. Even if you came as a student, you can vote. People on asylum, people who are refugees. A lot of people in every different group are actually allowed to get on the electoral roll and vote.
And I tell you, we like a vote in this country.
Yeah.
Every year there's something to vote on.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you know, the first time I'm just diverging, but the first time there was elections here, I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't even know it's happening. You just heard, it's today. You get a letter in my country when there's elections.
Everything stands still. There's elections.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there's people outside here like walking, listening to the politician.
Loud music.
Yeah, everybody just goes into a certain school and slowly done. Yeah, you can. Nothing happens else. It's voting season.
Stand still.
Back in the day, what they used to have was the standing MP would get into his car with a loudspeaker.
That's the thing.
That used to happen sort of back in the 80s and 90s, but I can't remember the last time that happened.
So we're still there. That's what we do. Election,
thousands
nothing moves.
In the streets.
Even you might have to close your business because maybe that person decides to come around your shop and they'll be like, a crowd there. People, It's not safe. You close up.
It's a big culture shock because when you just get a letter, you should go and vote. I'm like, what? Where's all the placards?
We don't even feel like there's voting happening. We don't actually think. And then suddenly you get an email, congratulations, I got in or I got out from your MP.
Wow.
You know, here you get an email, your MP is telling you, this happened. You don't, no one tells you that. After you vote for them, they just go away and you'll see they won because they'll have a different vehicle and things look better now.
And they'll be doing campaigns for Vania. So you will know. So here when you're about to vote, you're like, who is this? Who is it? You don't even know.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. It's
I'm just back from the States. Yeah. So my daughter's out there. She's on she's playing hockey out there. She's on a scholarship out at Richmond.
Oh wow.
And we got back. We were there end of October, beginning of November. So every single time you put the TV on,
it's something about
the elections. It's absolutely, and there's just slagging them off.
Yes.
Just so and so does this, does that. He's a crook. You know, he just quite blatantly says the man's a crook. Imagine that's you there and you're eating your dinner and then you're on the TV and you say you're a crook. He's a crook. Bonkers.
Oh dear. At the beginning of this show, Tony asked me a question. Me is Violet, and I represent maybe a larger group. Like, I wanted to say my age, but basically in my 30s, late 30s. But what will stop me from having a mortgage or my first mortgage? So the first one, of course, is credit score. Is having small children, not allowing you to work full time. Is about visas, which I know you tackled a little bit last time. So it depends on what kind of a visa somebody is on. It depends on the what is this thing called? Sorry, just had but deposit, that's what I'm talking about. So because if you have a child, you're not working full time, and then you're required to come up with 25 grand. So again, that goes back on your immigration, on your visa. So then you have to pay visa fees and all these things. So all these things are stopping a lot of people from having their first house. So, but Jonathan, maybe you could tell us more about not visas, but per se somebody who's maybe on an income of 2 grand. So if somebody was working full time, they have maybe an income of £2,000. And it's just an average Jodo. And what's the beginning process?
So once you've got your credit all sorted out and you've rung me up, the next thing we're going to do is look at affordability. Okay? How much are the lenders prepared to lend to you? And a lot of this is done on algorithms. So you can probably just go on to any particular website. There's all of these comparison websites. You can go on there and you can plug in the information that they're looking for. You press the button and it will come up with a generalized figure as to how much they're prepared to lend to you. So the affordability is a dance between income and expenditure. The lenders, they like income, right? And to a certain extent they just put up with expenditure because everybody's got expenditure.
Of course,
But if your expenditure is too high, then it starts to affect how much the lenders are going to lend to you.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, a lot of people will say you'll get probably 4.5 times your income.
Your annual
so that's
income.
your gross annual income. So if you're on $2,000, I don't know if that was net or gross, but it's the gross amount that they look at, 4.5 times that. And again, this is very much sort of just rule of thumb. A lot of lenders will give you what I like to say is about £400 in spending money.
Yes.
Yeah. And what I mean by that is that if you've got £400 that you know is going out every month on a car, credit card bills, a student loan, etc. As long as you don't go over the £400, then you'll still probably get 4.5 times your income. But once you start tipping over past the £400, then especially if you're on a lower salary, it means a lot more of your income is going to pay your debts, and there's less money available for you to pay the mortgage. It's got a bigger impact the smaller the income. But if you've got a bigger income, then if you go over the £400 slightly, it's not going to make that dramatic a difference. But if you've got a smaller income, then you might end up only getting 4 times your income rather than 4.5.
4.5.
But it's very difficult for me to say it's definitely 4.5 time. Because everybody uses the algorithm. And if there's something that you can do, then it's go onto the comparison sites and use their tools, because they're absolutely wonderful and they're pretty much bang on.
Okay.
You know, they're not going to say you can borrow £250,000 when you can only borrow £150,000. No, they're fairly accurate, I have to say. They're a good gauge.
Okay.
And let's go back. I think we go back on credit score and things about credit. We've spoke about, things that affect credit score. We've mentioned maybe your payment history, how you're paying your bills,
Sure.
How you're utilizing maybe that credit card that you have. You've said probably the earlier the better, so the length of your credit history also matters. Say if someone started now versus someone who's been paying some credit card for since 5 years or something. There's something as known as credit mix as well. That is the different sorts of things you're paying for. Maybe you have a loan, still you have a credit card, and maybe you have something else you're paying for. Might that also affect your credit score? The amount of things you have.
I think the amount of things that you have is probably important, both in a positive and a negative way. It's a positive because you're taking credit and you're managing your credit. So in the eyes of the lenders, they can see that you can do that. The problem comes where you're taking too much credit. And a lot of the lenders will use an income to debt ratio. So they will say that that's your income that you're getting. The total amount of debt that you have is this. And if that total amount of debt that you're paying back is higher than your salary, then that's a potential problem. So for example, if you're on, say, £40,000, okay, and you think, oh, this is great, I've got this brand new job, I'm on £40,000, I'll go and buy me a Tesla at 80,000 or whatever Teslas are costing, okay? Other cars are available. And you've got a debt there of 60,000. If you're only earning 40,000, despite the fact that you can pay £400 or £500 per month to pay that Tesla down, okay, the fact that you've got an outstanding debt of £60,000 is not going to play well if there's a lot of other debt, credit in the background. So the debt to income ratio, that's a big thing that the lenders look at.
Okay. People have been told, obviously, like one day I was on one of the apps, the Check Credit, and then I think it gave me a prompt or told me, don't open a new bank account, or like don't open another bank account, stay with what I have. That I didn't think that is something that affects it.
So there is a caveat when I'm saying you should open a bank account or a credit card. You certainly should be thinking about doing that, because without doing that, you're not going to have a marker on your credit report. So you have to take the step. The problem is when you take the step, then potentially they're going to do a hard check on your credit report. Soft searches are okay. So when I do a decision in principle for a client, which is the first step in getting a mortgage, the lenders will do a soft search against you, and that's not going to detrimentally affect your credit score. A hard search is, and the more hard searches that you do, then the more likelihood is that your credit report is going to tank. Now, you've got to watch, and one of the really things that concerns me is that if you go onto the comparison websites, and you start asking for insurance quotes, you need to be very careful that they're not doing hard footprints
on your credit.
Now if you take out a credit card, they will ultimately do a hard search. And I don't know if you get to increase your credit limit, they'll do a search. I don't know if it's a soft search or a hard search, but again, you should be asking. If you've got any doubt whatsoever,
don't just do it.
Call them and sure you ask. Is it a soft footprint or a hard footprint? That's really important, because you don't want to have too many hard footprints, because that is going to be detrimental.
And when you say too many, are we talking like, sometimes you're going to take you're new, you're starting this, you're going to take a SIM card, or you want to take a phone, you're just doing small tidbits here, but you don't know how detrimental it is. What is a lot in a month or 6 months?
Listen, you've got to, if you're starting off building your credit, you're going to take some pain.
Obviously.
And what I mean by that is that they will do hard searches. I think you want to limit them as much as possible.
Once a month, if you're needing to, or how much is too much? Basically,
I would be saying quarterly. I would be very, very concerned if I was going for a loan, because I know as a mortgage, they're definitely going to do a hard footprint at some stage. I would be saying for the 3 months before that, I would making sure that you haven't got any hard footprints.
All right. Okay.
I would do that.
So 3 months before you're trying to get any major or anything that you know will actually need a hard search. Make sure you've been clean for at least 3 months. No hard searches have been done.
No hard searches. That's what I would do. That's a good
point.
That's what I would do. And ultimately, if you want to buy that car, just buy it after you've bought the property. Don't try and buy it before
the property.
And the other thing that some people get caught out on is, we do the application, we get the mortgage. So physically, we've got the piece of paper that says we're going to get you £150,000 over 25 years, etc. You're going to be able to buy the property, and then you think, that's great. I'll just go and buy a car now. And so they decide to go and buy a car a week before they buy the property. But what the lenders will do is that the lenders will do another search after you've got the mortgage, just to check that you haven't taken on additional credit. That can be a problem, because if they see that you've taken another credit, that might affect the mortgage offer, and at any stage they can say,
they can cancel it.
That's you're not getting the mortgage.
And at what point does anybody who gets a mortgage has to get like a mortgage broker?
No. So the reason I do myself out of some work here.
I know.
Anyway, but listen,
that's why you have gone.
I'm not here for that.
I know.
So, if you're employed, if you've got a deposit, and your credit is okay, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can get a mortgage. Now, you might not get the best mortgage. You might not get the top 10 mortgage. A broker will guarantee that they will get you the best deal for your circumstances. If you don't want to go to a broker, and as I say, you're employed, you got a deposit, and your credit's decent, you could probably go to any of the high street lenders, and they would be more than happy to give you a mortgage. But whether you're getting the right mortgage, again, is the question. So I tell you who we act for. So we act for the tried and faileds, the first timers, and the can't be arsed. Now the can't be arsed is I'm time poor. I don't have enough time to fart about with mortgage applications, staying on the phone to a lender for 20 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours, whatever. So that's that. The tried and failed is obvious. They've tried themselves to get a mortgage and they can't, so they come to us. And then the first time buyers who they don't know where to start. So those generally are the three categories of people that we help. And also we've got the buy-to-let stuff as well, which is a completely different sort of avenue. And I think if you're doing buy-to-let, you're probably doing it as a side hustle. You've probably got a job and you're just maybe it's a pension play for you. You're buying property because you want to have a pension of rental income at the end of your time. That's probably a little bit more nuanced. And I would be thinking, certainly for your first, if you're looking to buy a property and rent it out, there's so many strings to that. I would be suggesting that you go and see a broker about that. Certainly for the first one. And then once you know what the rules and regs are, then if you feel confident enough, go for it.
That's Jonathan. That's the best mortgage broker.
Brick and mortar. There's a point you said about your client had some payment missed. It was kind of because some company changed ownership, then you went and corrected that. How do you correct that? Who do you contact?
So if you think that a company has put a mark against you, a negative mark against you, and you don't think, and you know for sure that it's not you or you paid it, etc., then you can certainly write to the credit agencies, and if they uphold your appeal, then they will put a note on your credit. And if you write to the company who has done that, and they agree that it's been their mistake, then I would be demanding that you get a letter from them. Because even if you don't update the credit report, if you go and get a mortgage, the lender, and you've got a letter from that company that says it was them, it's their fault, then that's really important, because the lenders are wanting to see that. They want to make sure that it wasn't your fault. So there are ways and means. If something is on your report that you don't agree with, you can certainly appeal it for sure.
So on your credit report, there will be a detailed report of your history, all your payments. These are even the smallest payments you're doing. All the inquiries that have been made by other companies about
soft
you.
Searches,
even the soft searches will be on your credit.
So they'll do hard searches and soft searches. They will look at accounts that are open, accounts that are closed, and that's all over a 6-year period.
And you're actually not the one who's you're not giving, these accounts will appear that they know, they can find all your accounts that are open. You're not the one who's because when you go to these apps,
you don't need to tell them. No, they know. Don't worry, they'll find you.
Because
there's no hiding place. And that's the thing. When some clients come to me, and they say, so credit cards, what credit cards have you got? And they say, I've got the one from here, TSB credit, and I've got the credit report there. I say, well, what about the one from NatWest, and what about this, and what about that? And listen, it's human nature, especially if you're married and you've gone and you've bought something and your husband or your wife you're not told. No, there's no hiding place. There's no hiding place.
And then when I go to my app, Experian actually, let's say it tells me, connect your payments, connect your bank, connect these, it might help your credit score. Is that a thing?
Yeah, so I think it's Experian that they do. I think that if you pay them, somehow there's something in the background, some algorithm in the background that can boost your credit.
Yeah, they say
score.
actually the name boosts. If you want to boost, connect us to your banks, which you're paying your bills from, and this might up something, and it will show more of what you're actually paying. Yeah. So I'm like, I thought you already know. So
personally, with my legal hat on, I'd be very skeptical of
that boost.
That.
Yeah,
I'm thinking. Listen, getting a mortgage, buying a property, keeping a mortgage, it's a long-term game. I think in life, anything that gives you a short-term fix, I'm quite skeptical about anything.
Need to do the work.
Yeah. You do the work. Okay. But it might, listen, I'm not disparaging Experian.
It might be working or not.
It might be.
Because actually even there they have like a small terms and conditions saying that not all other creditors the boost will not work for every something.
Covering their backs.
And check my file is actually like, I think £14 the last time I checked per month. So, that's maybe price of 2-3 coffees. So it's worth it. So
But as he said that you can do it first just to check and then get out of there.
First 1 month is free. But monthly it's £14 thereabout.
Okay.
Because ultimately, I mean, what I say to them is, get the credit report, because if the credit report's not great, it's not going to improve next month.
No.
It's a snapshot of if you wanted to get an application in the next 6 weeks away with a mortgage lender, your credit, irrespective of what you do, then it's not going to change dramatically. I mean, there are things that are just absolutely you have to do. If I see a credit report that is poor, if there is, and this happens fairly regularly, that somebody has found, we talked about utility bills, if somebody found that they've got an unsettled bill, so say for example there's a debt that's owed and it hasn't been satisfied, pay it off. Because if you go to get a mortgage and you've got unsettled debts, that's to say that you've had your 5 months where you haven't paid and they've sold the debt to a debt collector, and you might be on the cusp of getting a court order against you, pay off the debt. Because we can't, very difficult, unless it's an unsatisfied debt under a certain amount of money, then lenders are just going to say, we're not interested in that.
There's somebody I know who had, basically they were married and then they divorced, but then they had credit cards worth almost 40 grand, 50 grand, and they were just waiting for the 6-year period to be over so that their credit score, I think, will go back to zero. Is that the case?
It comes off.
Comes off. So does that mean if you've messed up in 6 years, you're like, that's 6 years, then I just wait for the 6 years to be over and it comes off? Or how does that work?
Technically, the credit report won't have that debt on it. So when you show the credit report to the lender, it will be a clean credit report.
All right.
I can't possibly think that there isn't some sort of issue in the background. I mean, I don't know, and I'll tell you that I don't know. But to me, if you rack up tens of thousands of pounds of debt and then think you can walk away 6 years later scot-free,
there must,
and morally, I just that doesn't strike well with me.
Actually, that was my next question. Like, if you get married and then we start having a joint card or joint account, how does that come into my personal credit score, which I came into? Maybe I came with a very healthy credit score. Then we started sharing an account or a credit. I took you out we have 2 cards and your additional
card with the same brush, I'm afraid.
Stuff,
Yeah.
If he or she drags you down,
you're down together.
You're going down
together. I'm afraid.
I think that then should be the first question when you're going on your second or third date. How's your credit score?
I know.
You be exchanging your
I like you. What's your credit score again? It's important now because you're gonna take me down with you. I have to think about the future, and we are talking about the future, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking you might, if you ask that second date, you're
out.
I'm thinking you're
There's
struggling. Irrespective of what kind of credit you got, I think you're out. After you ain't getting a third date, that's for sure. Three.
I know.
This is date 2, and he's already. Are we getting married?
They just like, no, I need to know this. Your bills have to.
Tell me how you get on with that.
But joint accounts and cosigns loans will impact both partners. That is for sure.
If you've got a joint account,
there's also this thing of. See, if you have money going into your bank account, maybe you have 2 or 3 bank accounts, right?
Yeah.
Is there a set, maybe it's a business, is there a set amount of time that money, maybe say 5 grand, should just went into one account? Should it stay maybe for like 10 days, 5 days, a set amount of time for it to improve my credit score? Maybe transfer it into another account because maybe you want to do some business.
I don't know the answer to that. I would have thought it's not. I don't think that's going to affect the credit report. The fact that you've got more money in your account, certainly it will be detrimental if you're living out of an overdraft, for example. And what I mean by that is that, let's say you get paid 2 grand a month into your bank account, but your bank account at the end of the month, before you get paid, is £1,500
negative
in debt,
in overdraft,
but your £2,000 comes in, and then your £500 to the good. But over the month,
again,
you end up end of the month, you're back at £1,500. Banks don't like that.
No.
Living out of your credit, living out of your overdraft is, they just don't like that, because they, I think, assume that if you can't work within a particular sum of money, and we're giving you more, how on earth
you're already living out of your means.
So it's all about, when you go to get a mortgage, being the best version of yourself as you possibly can. You know, not have any hard searches for a quarter. Make sure that when your salary goes in at the end of the month, you've got some pennies at the end of the month, and you're not, you know, into your overdraft. That's really important as well.
And does having a savings account help, like a direct debit towards your savings account?
Again, that demonstrates that you have an ability, first of all, that you've got additional cash at the end of the month, and the fact that you're then transferring that into a savings account can be nothing but good in terms of your credit.
Another question, it just came up because of the business aspect you mentioned. How are businesses, or is credit scores just for individuals?
Yes.
I never thought of that. Okay, so when banks are looking maybe to provide any sort of loans to a business or an entity that's not someone personal, they don't look at credit and stuff.
Now, we have this from time to time where somebody is self-employed, but they haven't created a company. So they're not a director and a shareholder. They're just, let's say, for example, you're an electrician, and you're just self-employed, not going through a limited company. If you buy a van, the contract you are signing is a contract by you as an individual. Notwithstanding the fact that you're going to be driving that van about
around
during your work, that will go into your personal credit report. And the thing is that you've then, it becomes a little bit more complicated when you're looking at mortgages for those that are self-employed, because they'll look at your average, generally they'll look at your average over a 2-year period. So when you are self-employed, if there's any credit that you take out, like a van, that's going to have an impact in terms of your credit report. And also the affordability as well, because they will see, irrespective of the fact that that's being used for your business, because it's a personal contract for you, that's going to affect affordability.
Would you advise somebody to, if somebody say Tony had 70 grand stashed somewhere and he wants to buy maybe his first apartment or something, would you advise him to buy the flat out, being the first property? Would you advise this particular person to buy the property on cash, or maybe do a mortgage then do a remortgage?
Okay, so the first thing is, I don't like the phrase that you've got money stashed somewhere. To me, that's already
wow, I wish I did.
ringing alarm bells, because immediately the bank are saying, where has that money come from?
First of all.
So that's the most important thing when we're talking about deposits, that you haven't been able to demonstrate that you've saved. We talked earlier about transferring money out of your account into your savings account. That savings account builds up, and that's then the deposit. That's dead easy. Nice paper trail, etc. The issue comes where somebody has given you the deposit. Now, ideally, if that's a family member, that's absolutely fine. But again, the bank will go one step back, and they will ask your parents, well, how did you get hold of that money? So they will keep asking questions until they're satisfied as to where the source has come from. So that's sort of something about the deposit. And if you buy something cash, the first thing that the banks will look at is, well, where did you get the money from? And if you can get over that hurdle, should you buy it cash and then remortgage, or should you get a mortgage? It's very much personal. I mean, I would always be saying, and I think most financial advisors would be saying, you have to have a pot of money that is a sort of go-to amount in the event that, for example, you lost your money. They say you should have the equivalent of 3 months' salary earmarked in an account so that you've got that as the rainy day fund. So from, again, it probably is different between somebody who's investing in property and somebody who's buying a property to live in. I think a lot of people would be advising the investor, why would you be putting all the cash in one property? Because you've only got a finite amount of money available, and you should be trying to buy as many properties as, or one theory is, you should try and buy as many properties as possible and divide that lump sum of money into individual deposits. So I think if you're an investor, I'm not too sure why you would want to buy something cash.
Outright,
You might want to buy something cash if you were approaching retirement. And what you were wanting, you just wanted one property, and you thought, well, I'm going to buy this property, and it's going to create £1,200 a month for me, and I'm not going to have to pay a deposit in terms of that. It's very much a personal decision. There's nothing wrong with buying something cash and then taking a mortgage at a later date. There are some lenders, however, who say that you need to wait 6 months. Some people will talk this about the 6-month rule. So the 6-month rule is that if you buy a property, there are some lenders who will say you cannot get money out, remortgage the property for a 6-month period. But there are lenders out there who will give you a day one remortgage. So you buy the property on day one, and you could potentially remortgage it on day two.
On the same, so if somebody has maybe 60 grand somewhere, so on the same question, so, and they want to do it for investment purposes, so say the deposit on maybe these 4 flats, each is 20. Could the same investor get like the 4 mortgages for the 4 flats because he has deposits for the 4 flats?
In principle, yes. And so why it wouldn't work is that if you're a first-time investor, lenders are sometimes quite cautious. If you're a newbie in the buy-to-let game, they want to see a track record. And a lot of the lenders will talk about this. Are you a first-time landlord or an experienced landlord? And somebody like the Mortgage Works, I think that their definition of experienced landlord is, it's anywhere between, I think, 6 and 12 months. If you've been a landlord for 6 to 12 months, you then get deemed to become an experienced landlord. Once you're an experienced landlord, then potentially they could allow 4 mortgages on 4 flats very quickly. Whereas if you're a first timer, then I think you would have to buy one
at a time,
and then demonstrate that you know what you're doing. because it's all about managing risk.
Of course, yeah.
And if you can demonstrate that you've been doing this for 10 years and this is what I do, I buy 4 flats at a time, here's the history, then that's a story that you can tell the lenders. And there's less risk involved in that because you've got a history that you can demonstrate, listen, I'm a good bet here. Whereas if you're just a newbie, it's going to be difficult.
I see.
I see. They don't like you growing too quickly.
Whereas you're growing old too quickly.
And yet the property game still takes a lot of time and investment.
I tell you what, people have asked me about the property game. The property game is the easiest game to make money on, right? The problem is that you need to keep property for a long period of time. Historically, it's shown that if you keep property for 10, 15, 20 years, it will go up in value. The difficulty with the property game is that that's fine if you're doing it as a side hustle and you don't need to buy and sell these properties to put food on the table. But a lot of developers, that's their only gig, and so they have to buy cheap, do it up, sell it high, and the profit, that's what they're living on. So they don't have the benefit of being able to keep properties
and
for long periods of time.
Appreciate enough.
So I think what you'll find is that an investor, what they'll be trying to do is they'll maybe have 2 strategies. The first strategy is a flip strategy, and that puts food on the table, but it also, some of that profit will go towards the second strategy, which is, this is the long-term pension strategy, as I like to call it, and we buy a property for that, and the profit from that goes towards the next deposit, because the profit from that, I don't need that to put food on the table. That's my flip strategy.
So you keep maybe growing your portfolio one end and trying to have an income on one end.
Well, that's what I did. I had a side hustle. I bought properties. Thankfully, the job I was doing, I did that paid for everything. And so I didn't need to flip. So I sort of didn't need that first strategy because the job I was doing
was okay.
You were
right,
and I just had enough time on my hands to be able to do the second strategy, which was buy, hold, and get
when it's time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. We're going to take a little bit of a break. I hope that show was informative. We're going to take a break and then come back. I hope you're listening to us on live Facebook, jamboradio.co.uk. We're here with Jonathan from Bricks and Mortar, the property and investment show. We are having a great discussion. Just see you after these short messages.
Across the World Wide Web, on your mobile devices, on social media platforms, this is Jambo Radio! www.jamboradio.co.uk. We are multilingual. We are conversational in the languages you best understand. We are Jambo Radio! Jambo Radio, inspiring transformation.
Ushawahi tamani kuwa mtangazaji wa redio? Hakuna shida. Umewahi kuwa na show yako redioni? Hakuna shida. Unataka kuwa na tabia ya vyombo vya habari? Hakuna shida. Je, ulitaka kuwa na sauti na maoni yako kusikilizwa na watazamaji? Hakuna shida. Una masuala unayodhani yanapaswa kuwa kwenye vyombo vya habari? Sawa, hakuna shida. Je, una wasiwasi kwamba hauna imani kuzungumza kwenye vyombo vya habari? Hakuna shida. Je, vyombo vya habari vinakuwakilisha maoni yako juu ya masuala yanayokuhusu binafsi? Hakuna shida. Jiunge Jambo Radio. Kwa kujitolea, utafunzwa, utaungwa mkono na nafasi ya kuwa na kipindi chako. Piga simu 0745 990 6822 ama tovuti ya www.jamboradio.co.uk.
Here is a checklist for you. Fancy being a radio presenter? No problem. Have you ever wanted to have your radio show? No problem. Do you want to be a media personality? No problem. Ever wanted to have your voice and opinion be heard by an audience? No problem. Do you have issues you think should be in the media? Okay, no problem. Are you worried you don't have the confidence to talk on the media? No problem. Does the media represent your views on issues you are personally concerned about? No problem. Join Jambo Radio. As a volunteer, you will be trained and supported for a chance to have your own show on Jambo Radio. Call Dino on 0745 990 6822 or go to www.jamboradio.co.uk.
You are listening to Jambo Radio across Scotland. This is Jambo Radio News.
Latest news across Scotland. This is Jambo Radio. A 30-year-old man has been arrested and charged after thousands of pounds worth of drugs was found in Paisley on Thursday 21st of November. The stash, which included heroin, cocaine and cannabis, was found in a property in North Street. The man has been released and is to appear in court at a later date. Hollywood star Glenn Powell was seen in Glasgow as he filmed scenes for the new movie The Running Man. Powell takes on the lead role, which was originally played by Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 1987 classic. The 36-year-old was seen in the city's West End as he filmed scenes for the dystopian film about a sadistic television game show. The SNP is in talks about the prospects of lifting the pay freeze on ministerial salaries. This news will enrage Scots who are forced to pay the highest taxes in the UK by the regime. The Scottish Government pay cap was imposed 15 years ago by the late Alex Salmond, and discussions about scrapping it are taking place within the party's Holyrood group. The Met Office has warned of a danger to life as 6 weather warnings for wind and rain remain in force while Storm Bert batters the UK, which has placed nearly 400 areas at risk of flooding and causing severe travel disruptions. Winds of up to 82 miles per hour have been recorded so far, and energy chiefs have warned the worst of the impact is yet to come. And now for African news. Freeman Mbowe, the leader of the Tanzania's main opposition party, Chadema, has been released on bail after being arrested on Friday the 22nd of November, just before local elections set for November the 27th. His arrest was reportedly linked to a gathering ahead of the elections. After his release, he addressed reporters saying, "We were accused of violating the campaign schedule, but this is unfounded as we had already reached an agreement with our opposition colleagues." He also said it was a deliberate attempt to disrupt Chadema's planned campaigns. He noted some party members remain in custody and that he and others have been summoned to appear before authorities on November the 29th. He intends to consult legal counsel regarding the matter. And that's the latest from Jambo Newsroom. I'm Andrew Bainey.
Are you or a loved one living with high blood pressure, chronic kidney disease or asthma and looking for new treatment options? Clinical trials could be your next step. At Synexus Research Scotland, we are working to help advance medical research, and you can be part of it. Join a clinical trial that is assessing new treatments and providing expert care, and with the possibility of reimbursement for your time. Your safety is always our priority, and participation is voluntary. To see if you qualify, call 0141 945 6850. That's 0141 945 6850 and quote the word radio. Come and get involved in research and help shape the future of medicine in your community.
Are you a star baker or know someone who is? Applications for the next series of the Great British Bake Off are open.
Oh, that's exciting.
Are you a whiz with a whisk and ready to rise to the challenge?
An expert leader or the family's favourite feeder?
Do you love experimenting with flavours and sharing bakes with all your neighbours? Well, if you're a passionate, talented home baker, we want to hear from you.
Head to www.applyforbakeoff.co.uk to apply now.
Who knows? Maybe you'll be baking in the famous white tent next.
Across the World Wide Web, on your mobile devices, on social media platforms, this is Jambo Radio! www.jamboradio.co.uk. We are multilingual. We are conversational in the languages you best understand. We are Jambo Radio! Jambo Radio, inspiring transformation.
And we are back with Anthony.
Violet.
And we have Jonathan from Bricks and Mortar. We're getting a lot of info about getting into your mortgage. You're listening to us on Jambo Radio. You can call into the studio on 0141 530 2787, or you can send a message on WhatsApp on 0745 990 6822. And we're back. Now let's delve in even deeper into getting that mortgage.
Oh yeah.
Our first question for Jonathan.
First question for Jonathan is, Jonathan, how do you get paid and who gets to pay you? Is it me who's getting the mortgage, or is it the lender?
So it's a bit of both.
Yeah,
a bit of
right.
both. Okay. So we do ask clients to pay for the service that we offer. My view is very much is that if you had a leak in your toilet, and you asked somebody to come out, and they said, "Yep, we'll fix that," you're going to pay them. So I think we're offering a very good service. Yes, you can do the stuff yourself. That's absolutely fine. There are also mortgage brokers out there who won't charge for the service. But what I would say is that if that was me and I wasn't charging for my service, right, and the only way I'm getting paid is from the lenders. So the lenders will give the mortgage broker a commission of round about 0.2% of the value of the mortgage. Okay. So the higher the mortgage, then the more the broker is going to get paid. So if I was a broker that wasn't asking clients for a fee, okay, I would be saying difficult cases. I'm not interested in difficult cases because that's going to take me more time to get money. I'd be looking for higher value stuff that was dead easy. So I think, and I alluded to this earlier, that we act for those who have difficulties, first-time buyers who don't know, tried and failed, who've tried it themselves,
and they can't be bothered.
And they can't be bothered. So we charge. We've got a structure of, if it's a buy-to-let, we charge 595, and if we get a residential mortgage, it's 495. We strip that back so that when we speak to clients initially, we say to them, this is the structure. And we always, every single conversation we have, because we want to be completely transparent. Because and the reason why I do that, and why I decided to open up Bricks and Mortar Mortgages, was that whenever in the past I got a mortgage, there seemed to be a lack of transparency. Something that the broker was hiding. It felt to me as if they were hiding something, and it always felt as if they were trying to sell you something. So much so that any time I used to speak to a broker, I used to feel as if I had to go and have a shower afterwards. There
was something dirty happening.
So I thought, if I'm going to start a company that deals with mortgages, I want to be absolutely transparent, and that's what we are. And ultimately, if after we will always take a conversation, okay, we will always ask, and what I hope is, even if they decide not to go with us, I give them something. I give them some piece of advice, because they've taken the bother to phone me up, right? I'm hoping that we can explain to them the reasons why they should use us, but ultimately some people are saying, no, I'll just go and get it done for free. But I want to give them some sort of advice, which is sort of, can be sometimes generic, but it'll be something that they can use to be able to move forward. So when we speak to the clients, we say the structure is 495 or 595. We charge £100 of that 495 for the research, £100 for the decision in principle, and if and when we get the mortgage, we charge you the balance. If at any time the clients decide they want to stop the process, they don't have to pay a penny more. So if they want to get the research, and that's all, that's fine. Pay £100, I'll do the research, I'll do the job, I'll tell you how much you can borrow and how much and the top 3 lenders that you can go to, and we'll tell you the names of those lenders. And we are very much an open book. There's some brokers out there, and I know this because I speak to clients, because sometimes client comes to us because they've not had a great experience with somebody else, and I always ask them what that experience was, and a lot of the times I say to them, did they tell you what rates you were going to get? And they said yes. Did they tell you who the lender was? And they never get told who the lender is, because the broker is paranoid that once they tell the client the rate and the lender, they'll just go off and go direct. I think, well, yes, of course that can happen, but is that the kind of person you want as a client?
Okay.
I'm in it for the long term, the long game. I want people who, when I text them every year to give them an update on the mortgage, they know who I am, and they're interested in what I'm talking about, and they trust me.
And basically probably you're giving them something more, because if they just go to a lender, the lender won't like take care of them as you would, because you are looking out for their interest as well. I think
you've knocked it on you've hit the nail on the head there. Ultimately, we are providing a service, right? And we will be successful if we provide a good service. If we don't provide a good service over and above what somebody would get from a bank, then we're not going to have I'm not going to be trading. I'll go bust. So that's why when we speak to clients, service, because that's, as I said to you earlier, if you're employed, good deposit, and you get decent credit, you can go and do it yourself. It's not, honestly, it's not that difficult. We have to provide a service first and foremost, and we have to solve problems that clients have got. And I think there will always, in any industry, there will always be people in that industry, and the reason that they're in that industry is because they've identified what the client's problem is, and they can resolve it.
The problem.
A lot easier than the client trying to resolve it themselves.
On a bit of a light note, actually, when you're solving problems, I had a conversation between yourself and Violet earlier. What do you ask for from a client? There's always people who think, oh, if I go to a mortgage broker,
there's some basics.
They might ask for this, and I'm scared to give them this certain document, a certain thing. What does a mortgage broker ask for? Listen, what is the standard?
We understand that what we are dealing with is client-sensitive information.
Exactly.
We are aware of that, but ultimately, in order for us to do our job, we have to have that information. It has to be correct. Don't come on giving me some bogus date of birth. I mean, that's just going to that's a disaster. So what we've got to do, and it's we've got maybe 2 or 3 minutes to try and gain the client's trust. And sometimes that can be difficult because it's the biggest investment a lot of people are going to make
in their lifetime.
And they've probably saved up for years for the deposit. So they need to have a huge element of trust. And so I can understand why people are reticent in not giving their information, but our job is to say, and what we try and express upon them is that we're absolutely transparent, and we are an open book. And what I like to say is that there's no catches and there's no gotchas. You're not going to suddenly find us sending you a bill and we haven't done you any work. It's never going to happen.
So generally, what would be the list of things? Let's say I'm not going to Jonathan, but in general, what would the mortgage broker want from, per se, me, Tony, to just look into what I am able to afford out there as a list?
So the first question I always ask is, what do you do in terms of a job? Are you paid? Are you employed? Or are you self-employed? If it's self-employed, then it's how long you've been self-employed for. Are you self-employed, or are you a director of a limited company? If you own more than 20% of the shares in that limited company, you are treated by the lenders as somebody who is self-employed, so you go down that funnel, irrespective of the fact that you might be taking a salary from that limited company and no dividends, i.e. you're not taking any of the profits, but you're just getting a salary. If you have got more than 20% or 25% of the shareholding, despite the fact that you think that you're employed by the limited company, the bank will treat you as somebody who's self-employed. And generally it's 2 years, averaged out over 2 years. You need to make sure that the income is increasing in the second year. If it's not increasing in the second year and the second year is poorer than the first year, then they will look at the first year and they won't average it out over the 2-year period. There are some banks that if you are trading for 1 year and you've got books for 1 year and you're making a profit, they will base the mortgage on that 1 year. But generally speaking, it's 2 years. So it's, what do you do? Are you employed? Are you self-employed? What do you want to do? That's important, obviously. Is it a residential mortgage or is it a buy-to-let? We ask them, are they a first-time buyer or have they already got a property? Because if they've already got a property, then we're thinking, right, what's your mortgage deal that you've got on your current mortgage? Because if you're hooked in, if you've come to see me and 2 years ago you've gone to one of the banks and got a 5-year fixed rate, if you're wanting to move that mortgage and buy a new property with a new lender, there's going to be an exit penalty of anywhere between 1% and 5%. You can what's called port the mortgage. So for example, if you've got a mortgage with, let's take for example TSB, and you last year took out a 5-year fixed rate, if you then decide that you want to move, you can move that mortgage to the new property and you move the rate with that. So let's do an example. Let's say, for example, you're buying a property that's worth £300,000. Okay, you've got £100,000 with TSB, and you need to find another £100,000 in terms of a mortgage. Okay, so what you can do is you can port the mortgage, so you can port the £100,000 with TSB onto the new mortgage, and then you go back to TSB and you get a new 2 or a 5-year deal with TSB, and you tack that onto your existing mortgage. So in essence, what you've got is you've got one mortgage, but with 2 products.
All right.
One product is 100,000 over 5 years, and the new product is £100,000 over 2 or 5 years, or whatever you want to choose.
Okay.
But you get the rate on the new product. You get the rate that they're offering at the time.
That's it.
You can't say, hold on here, I got 1.45% in 5 years, 2 years ago. You know, I want that's not going to work. No.
So if somebody's in England, would you still get them like the best mortgage deal? Is that like, are you independent or do you work with various lenders?
Yeah, so we're across the board. We're called directly authorised.
All right.
So we've got access to all of the lending throughout the whole of the UK.
All right.
So if you're in Scotland, Ireland, Wales, then we can get you a mortgage. There are things that we need to make sure in terms of identification.
Yeah.
Because obviously if you're in England, you know, we're not going to meet you
in person. Yeah. Okay.
And so people should not be afraid to like give their dates of birth, IDs. These are the things you actually need.
It doesn't
to
go
find.
Anywhere else.
Yeah.
It doesn't go anywhere else for sure.
How many, say specifically, how many lenders do you work with?
So you've got, I think there's about 90.
Oh wow!
Yeah, 90 lenders that we've got. Generally, you'll probably work with 20 of them.
Yeah.
Because how we work is we will take all of the information from the clients, and then we will do the research. And with that information we've got from the clients, we're already thinking, well, we can't go with that one because of that problem. We can't go with that one because of that issue, etc. So we're already filtering. So we use a system which is called Mortgage Brain. And so we plug in all of the details, salary, how much mortgage we're looking for, credit history, and that then spits out cheapest mortgage, most expensive mortgage. And we go through that list, sifting out which ones we can use, and we will then give the top 3 to our client in terms of the research. So we never, a client can come to us and they can have specific circumstances where we know the only lender is going to be lender X, okay? But that's very, very rare. Very rare. Generally, there's probably a pot of a dozen lenders that you can go to on any given circumstances. But what we will ensure is that at the end of the day, what we've given you are the top 3 cheapest options for you, both on a 2-year fixed rate and a 5-year fixed rate.
Okay. And say somebody comes to you, do you handle the whole application process for somebody? You know, for the people who can't be bothered?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. So what we'll do is the process is research affordability. That's what you're paying £100 for. Then some clients will already have a property and they're all ready to go. Some are just wanting, especially first-time buyers, they want to know before they actually start looking at property, physically going out to have a look at property. They want to know how much they can borrow and whether or not, and how much it's going to cost. So that's the research. Some clients come to us, they've already got a property, so we then go to the next step, which is decision in principle. So we send them the research, they come back to us and say, yeah, we want to go for a 5-year fixed rate with Barclays or TSB or whoever they want to go for. And we then run what is an initial application with the lender, and that's when the lender will do a soft footprint on the credit of the applicant. And they will come back to us to confirm whether or not they've passed the decision in principle. So the decision in principle are the main questions that the lenders are going to ask. It doesn't mean that if you get a decision in principle, you'll be guaranteed to get your mortgage offer, because they will ask supplementary questions after the application has gone in. So we do the decision in principle. We get the green light on that, and then the client, we send the research again to the client and say, listen, this lender here has said we're good to go. Are you happy to go with a 5-year fixed rate? And then we make the application. By the time we make the application, we've already asked for the documentation that we need. So if you're employed, it's pay slips. If you're self-employed, it's tax calculations for the last 2 years and tax year overviews. We want 3 months bank statements. We want to know where you've got the deposit from. We might need to get gifted deposit letters. So you need to get letters from whoever's giving you the money to say this is where it's come from, etc. And that's it.
Just not from the stash people. And do you provide advice on insurance?
Yes. So the other part of our job is, and we would be remiss if we didn't, is that we will always be asking our clients, if you're buying the property, you need to have buildings insurance, and you may want to get contents insurance. Buildings insurance is a prerequisite of getting a mortgage. If you get a mortgage and you buy a property, you have to have the building insured. Whether or not you insure the contents is entirely up to you. A lot of people do, but buildings insurance is absolutely key. And we will offer to run research in terms of buildings insurance, so we can cover the buildings insurance off. A lot of flats in Glasgow, a lot of factors, and if you've got a factored property that's a flat, you might find that the factor has got what's termed a common buildings insurance policy. And if you've got a common buildings insurance policy, you're not going to need a buildings insurance policy, because the factor who organises the maintenance within, let's say you've got 8 flats in a block of flats, the factor will organise all the maintenance, but they will also put in place a common buildings insurance policy, which covers what an individual buildings insurance policy would have. So if you've got a factor and a common buildings insurance policy, there's no need, a lot of the time, there's no need to have your own buildings insurance policy. So that's buildings insurance, and then we'll have a conversation about life insurance, critical illness and income protection, because we need to make sure in a worst case scenario that the clients are aware that if this happens, do you have anything set aside to ensure that that's
keep
the case?
paying you.
But it's amazing, a lot of clients are never going to die.
Yeah.
Well, so they say. Because I say,
I know.
When they're doing that,
do you need life insurance?
No,
I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
I just bought a house.
Yeah, and listen, I get that, because every pound's a prisoner, and everybody's got a budget. Yeah. But my job is to explain to you what's available.
Yes.
My job's not to tell your spouse who comes to see me when you die
that
have you got an insurance policy. That's not my job, right? My job is to say, in the circumstances, you need to have a look at this. I'm not going to push it one way or the other, but I'm going to tell them, if you've got 2 kids and a husband or a wife, and you haven't got some sort of life insurance policy, whether that's through your employer, it's buttons. It's not expensive to have policy in place that's going to cover. But some people just say, well, it's fine. No, I'm not going to die.
I know.
And if we go now to the types of mortgages that we get into,
sure.
or what entails what somebody can get.
Yeah. So the mortgages are very much based off of the variable rate, the bank's variable rate. And the most vanilla mortgage rate is your variable rate. It's the rate that after a fixed rate product, if you don't then get a new fixed rate product, you would go on to the bank's variable rate. So your bank's variable rate will be 2, maybe 3% higher than the Bank of England base rate. So the Bank of England base rate is 5. So if you go and type into the Google's Halifax base rate, variable rate, it'll tell you what that is. It's probably the most expensive rate that you would get in terms of a mortgage. What lenders are trying to do is sell you on a product, whether that's a 2-year fixed rate, a 5-year fixed rate, a discounted rate. There's a whole raft of rates. Now, back in the day, and this is mid-90s, when I got my first mortgage, fixed rates, which is all the go at the moment, everybody pretty much asks for fixed rates. But fixed rates back then were not popular, mainly because the base rate was at 6 and 7%, and what you tended to find was that the fixed rate mortgages were more expensive than the discounted rate mortgages. So the fixed rate mortgages are generally fixed are fixed for a period of time. You get 1 year, 3 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, and you will agree with the lender a specific interest rate, and that interest rate will continue through the term of that fixed rate. So if you go for a 1 year fixed rate, 12 months of payments. If you go for a 2 year, 24 months, 3 years, 36, etc. At the end of that period, normally 6 months before the end of your deal, we've organised a mortgage. We will text you and say your deal's coming to an end. This is what your lender is going to offer you in terms of staying with them. But this is what else is out there. So we always give our clients the option of, listen, if you want to stay with them, it's dead easy. There's a straightforward process. We don't charge. If you want to stay, say your mortgage with TSB, and you want to stay with TSB, we'll advise you what the deals are with TSB, but we'll also tell you what everybody else has got. So you have got, again, it's all about being open and transparent, that you have got a snapshot of what the best deal is. Now, the caveats with that are, if we stay with TSB, it's pretty much a penalty kick. And what I mean by that is that they don't look at your credit history. You've already got through the hurdles of getting the mortgage. So I had a client there who I said, listen, we're coming up, just last week, coming up to the mortgage renewal date. And she said, oh, I'm a bit concerned. I put an extension on and I went into overdraft, I missed a few payments, etc. I don't think I'm going to be able to get a mortgage. I said, well, I don't think you're going to be able to get a mortgage from a different provider.
But the one you're with.
The one you're with, and you're not penalised in any way.
Yeah, okay.
They're not, it's a bit blasé, but they're not concerned about what your credit history is at the moment, because ultimately they gave you a mortgage based upon what you had shown them 2 or 5 years ago. And if you're through the hoops there, then there's a loyalty, and they have to give you, you know, what the best deals are available for existing clients. So that's what happens in terms of the fixed rate. There are what's called discounted rates. So a discounted rate will be very much based off of the variable rate, and it will work again for periods of time. So you could have maybe a 2-year discount or a 5-year discount, and what they would say to you is that here's the variable rate, we'll give you 3% off the variable rate for 2 years. Now that sounds great if the variable rate is
low,
going low, and the variable rate changes generally when the Bank of England base rate changes, because the variable rates are very much keyed in to the Bank of England base rate. Sometimes you get discounted rates that are based upon the variable rate, and sometimes they're actually linked to the Bank of England base rate. So sometimes you hear the phrase, I've got a discount 2 off base, and that's 2 off Bank of England base rate. So that's great. If you think the market and the base rates and the variable rates are going down, then a discounted rate, there's an element of risk, because as with rates going down, rates can also go up. So it can be tricky. It can be tricky, and nobody's got a crystal ball. Nobody knows what's going to be happening with interest rates. Whether you go for a 2 or a 5-year fixed rate, we get a lot of questions about that. And what I would say at the moment is that 2-year fixed rates, again, are generally more expensive than 5-year fixed rates. So if you want longer money, then it's cheaper money. If you want shorter money, then it's more expensive.
It's more expensive,
So if you're going for a 2-year fixed rate, you have to have reasons as to why you want to fix for 2 rather than fix for 5. So for example, I'll give you a scenario. You're a first-time buyer. You've met your partner in the pub. On the 3rd date, she's come with your
good credit
Experian report, and you've
exchanged
said,
the reports, and you're good.
When are we buying? And so you've bought the property, but then there's something in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, I'm not entirely sure about this. You might not want to take a fixed rate for 5 years. You might just want to take a fixed year for 2 years because of your personal circumstances. You want to make sure that that credit score that she's given you remains a good credit score. So the other reason for going for a 2-year fixed rate is that if you think that rates are going down, what you might not want to do is to fix for a 5-year period.
Then they go down. And
every time you look at your mortgage statement, you're saying, I'm paying 4%. And if I'd gone for that 2-year fixed, I could have fixed for a 5-year period. And 5-year deals are now at 3%. So if you're confident that rates are on the way down, then you might want to think about a 2-year deal. But the problem with that is that 2-year deals are more expensive than 5-year deals. So as soon as you take a 2-year deal, you're paying more than the 5-year deal. So if rates don't come down, you've made the wrong decision.
It's a risk you have to assess.
For sure. And again, nobody's got a crystal ball.
No. I used to give mortgages for over 2 years with Standard Chartered Bank, and the norm, like, with Barclays and all other banks as well, was like, when you're speaking about 4%, 5%, that's for the government employees, that's for, staff for the bank. So it was so normal to get mortgages at 21%. That was the norm. That's what almost everybody gets.
Wow.
I know. It's
so there were special
crazy
rates for special people.
Yeah, if you work with the government, then it means there's job security.
Wow.
So or they negotiate that with the bank. If you work for the bank itself, just to keep the employees there as well, you get those 3%. But if you work for other companies, and most of the companies, this is maybe like 70% of the people, you get it at 21, 22%, and those are still the rates at the moment. So when somebody is trying to choose between fixed and it's still 5% or variable at 6%, we're like, huge. Oh my God, that's still a really good deal. I know you were a lawyer for over almost 30 years, I think, yeah. So I know you wear many hats, and see, if I come to you and I want to get a mortgage, right, maybe 100 grand, who are the people that are really, really important for me to speak to, or a mortgage specialist, which is you, maybe a real estate agent if I've not found a property. What about a lawyer? What about other professions?
Accountant.
Which are the people that you really need to get?
So let's take those off in the list. So I would be saying an estate agent is really, really important. I think what you need to do is potentially, say for example, you live in the West End of Glasgow. And it's the same in Shawlands, it's the same on the south side, and in the East End. There's always a street that has got all the estate agents on it. In the West End, it's Byres Road. Shawlands Road, Kilmarnock Road, all in Shawlands. And they're there. There's Slater Hogg, there's Clyde, there's Coram, there's Retties. They're all, and the independents are there as well. If I was buying a house and I knew exactly where I was wanting to live, I would be going and I would be knocking on the doors of all these estate agents, introducing myself and saying, listen, I'm interested in a property. If you find anything that comes up and the phrase is off market, then please put me on your list. And then what you need to do is, don't think that one conversation is going to open all sorts of doors. You then need to sort of have conversations with them on a pretty regular basis, so they know, because if you're front and centre with that estate agent, then they're more likely to pick up the phone because they know you're good to go. And if you've got a house to sell, they might be interested. Not might be interested. Will be interested in trying to sell that property for you. So that's what I would do. So that's estate agent. Broker, again, just make sure that you've got your credit all sorted out. Go and see a broker if you first time buyer.
Can't be bothered.
Or you've tried and failed. And then the lawyer, I think it's important to have the lawyer in place, because ultimately once you've gone to see the broker and you've been told it shouldn't be a problem getting your mortgage, then you need to make sure that you've got somebody in place who you can phone up and say, pop an offer in for that at the closing date. And you've already gone through, because the lawyers these days, they want to see the identification documentation, proof of deposit, etc. So if you've done that all prior, then you're not going to have those questions asked of you when you actually have to make the offer. And once you see a property, it moves very, very quickly. And sometimes you can lose out on property if you haven't been quick off the mark. And if you can't get a lawyer to make an offer for you because you haven't got your identification documentation, well, that's on you, I'm afraid. So you mentioned that I was a lawyer in the past. I still am a lawyer. I've still got my badges. So I'm a consultant with a firm called Lindsay's, and what I can offer is that if somebody phones me, I can say, listen, 2-year fixed rate with GSB Halifax, NatWest, shouldn't have a problem with that. And I can start talking about the property that you want to buy. Because as I'm a consultant, I take my mortgage hat off and I put my legal hat on and I say, I'm a solicitor with Lindsay's, consultant, etc. I can note an interest for you.
Okay.
I can negotiate a price. I can even put the offer in for you.
Wow.
So I can do all of that on the phone.
Yeah.
So for somebody who is time poor, the last thing they want to do is phone me up, then phone the lawyer, then go back to me, then go back to the lawyer, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
Whereas what we offer is, people like to say it's a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
It is and it isn't, because ultimately, once I put the offer in on behalf of the clients, I'm going to concentrate on getting you a mortgage and getting you the best mortgage. I personally am not going to do the legal work. I will get I will get my assistants at the legal firm to do all of the work. So all of the information with regards to your circumstances are immediately passed to the lawyers. To Lindsay's, and I send them over all of the documentation that they need in terms of identification, proof of deposit, working, etc., etc. So for a lot of people in this day and age, they would rather just speak to somebody that they trust who can do all sorts of things for you. But if somebody comes to me and says, listen, I've already got a lawyer, I'm not going to say, no, you need to use Lindsay's. And I'm saying, well, that's absolutely fine. What I will say to them is that if they are successful and they have any issues with regards to the legal transaction or something that they want a second opinion on, or they don't understand, actually speaking to lawyers, and I know this because I was one, speaking to a lawyer, it's very difficult for a client to actually pick up the phone and speak to the lawyer, because generally lawyers who deal with buying and selling of residential property, the only way that they can make money is by ensuring that they've got lots and lots of transactions on the go. And if they've got lots and lots of transactions on the go, they don't have time to always speak to the client. They'll always phone you back, but the chances of you phoning the solicitor and actually getting through to them, because ultimately if the lawyer picked up every single phone call from their client, they wouldn't get anything.
They would be on the calls.
They wouldn't get anything done. So what I say to the clients is that if they need a second opinion or they don't understand something, well, just phone us at Bricks and Mortar. You know, if I can't speak to you, then we've got Amy and we've got Catherine. We'll always take the call for sure. And you know, and it'll get passed through to me, and I'll give you what I think you might want to think about doing, or explain the thing that you don't understand, hopefully in a way that you do then understand it. And we don't I don't charge for that. That's just something that we offer. That, you know, I would rather help people. You know, if I'm getting the mortgage and we're getting paid a fee to do it, and the lenders are paying us a commission, then of course I'm going to help you, because ultimately I'm looking at the long-term game, that if I help you, then you'll think that, you know, he's a good guy, he's helped me through this, and not only will he or she come back, they may
Referral.
they may refer me.
And I also know on the same, you know, you're also doing, you partner up with a real estate company, and I don't know whether I should be mentioning that, but it's a good thing for somebody who's buying their first time mortgage, or somebody who can be bothered picking a call and, you know, just going on the street and getting, you know, real estate agents. So could you tell us more about that, please?
So I think I can tell you about this. I'm just trying to work out what's been signed and what hasn't been signed. There's no DNA or anything like that. So what we've agreed is that Penny Lane, who are a set of estate agents who predominantly are in Paisley and Johnston, they're looking for a base in the West End. We're in Crow Road, in the heart of the West End.
Yeah.
And this gentleman came in, approached me and said that would I be interested in renting out a desk, and that would then allow them to put some of their properties for sale in our window, and it would give them a base in terms of when people were driving past, they would see bricks and mortar mortgages, but they would also see Penny Lane estate agents. Now, so Penny Lane estate agents have been going for 20 odd years. Roberto Regano is the man that I speak to, and so he's going to be in there. We're talking about what signage is going to be up. So I would think probably this side of Christmas, when you drive by, you'll see bricks and mortar mortgages, but you'll also see Penny Lane estate agents. And the great thing with that is that they don't have a mortgage broker. So the idea is that we'll be able to help their clients who are looking for a property. They'll be able to get some great advice from us at Bricks and Mortar.
And definitely anybody who comes to you for a mortgage will need a property. So I think it's a very good symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. And what do you tell a first-time buyer? Are there still government schemes? Are they the best way to go? Are there any helps? The help to buy and all that. And I think it's also different from whichever area you are, Scotland or you're in.
So there is, I think, and this is where I need to watch. My advice is advising on mortgages, not pure financial advice. But there are schemes out there that will allow, I think it's a LISA or Lisa, which allows you to put money in to an account purely for
your first house,
a deposit, and they will give you, I think the last time I looked, 25% uplift when you take the money out, which is absolutely wonderful, and you can use that for your deposit. And there are schemes, to be honest, I haven't done any of these specialist schemes for a couple of years. There was a time just before the pandemic where the government were offering pretty much to pay your deposit. It was very much based around new build, but as soon as that money got allocated, it just got gobbled up within like days.
Because people will apply and
and the way that scheme worked from recollection was if you borrowed 5%, let's say for example 5%, and your property went up in value, they got 5% of the increased value
back.
Yes. So you didn't have to pay them a monthly amount, and a lot of people I think thought, well, that's free money, but it's never free money.
No.
At the end of the day, if the property goes up 20%,
they're getting their money back.
They're getting their money back plus 20% on that 5%, which would be so much more than what they would be getting
if you borrowed.
Yeah, if you borrowed that out at I don't know, 5%. So that was on the go probably pre-pandemic. I honestly haven't done any of that kind of stuff for a couple of years.
Okay. So if somebody took out a mortgage and 2-3 years down the line, their circumstances change and they cannot be able to pay the mortgage, maybe before they get their next job or before their circumstances change, can somebody get a mortgage holiday?
Yeah. So the most important thing to do is do not stick your head in the sand. Do not, for goodness sake, speak to the lenders. The lenders are human, they'll listen to you. But you need to tell them your story. If you don't think they're going to listen, they may well listen to your story, but at least you've put a marker in the sand and say, well, listen, these are my difficulties, you need to help me out. Okay, open up a discussion, because it ain't going away, and if you stick your head in the sand, it's just going to get worse.
It's going to get worse.
So if you're on a repayment mortgage, there is an ability to be able to put that mortgage on an interest-only mortgage. So in essence, you're only paying interest on the mortgage. You're not making any repayments. So that can reduce significantly the amount that you are paying on a monthly basis. Round about the pandemic time, they did have this mortgage holiday, which meant that the interest accrued on your mortgage. And so depending upon how often or how long you took it out for, your, say for example, it was 6 months, the 6 months interest was rolled up and added on to the mortgage. That's not advertised. The last thing that the lenders want is to repossess your property. Okay, they will do absolutely everything that they can to ensure that that doesn't happen. Okay, and that's why you need to tell them your story. So don't get your head out the sand. Go and speak to them and get some sort of arrangement with them. And if it's a reasonable arrangement and they can see that there is some light at the end of the tunnel, then you're going to hope that they'll play ball with you.
There's some clients I met a while back, and they had a mortgage where you had to pay money for, maybe you can pay for your whole lifetime, but you still don't own the property. I've never heard of that. I don't know what that is. You're just paying, it's a mortgage, but you'll never own the property. I'm like, how does that even make any sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't... No, I don't. That's like renting a property. So you don't ever have your names on the title deeds. I mean, you can get a mortgage where it's interest only. So let's say you buy the property for £150,000. You put a deposit down of £50,000 and you get a mortgage of £100,000. Okay, and it's interest only. And you take it for 25 years and you buy it when you're 50, say for example, and you come to your 75th birthday, your mortgage comes to an end, you own the property, but you still have a debt of 100,000. So you need to find out a way of repaying that. And one of the ways you can do that is to downsize, because over a 25-year period, if you've paid £150,000 for your property, your property is probably going to be worth £400,000, £500,000, £600,000 potentially, but your debt is only, so your loan to value is significantly lower than it was. But your mortgage has run out of time. So the bank will be quite within their rights to say, well, we want our money
100K back.
And they want 100K back. And one of the ways that people will do that is that they will sell the property. And then they will downsize and use the profit. So let's say that property has gone up in value to £600,000 and they pay off £100,000. They're left with 500 grand that they can go and buy a property with cash. So that's the only, I mean, although they still own the property, if they've taken an interest-only mortgage, their hand potentially can be forced at the end of the term. If you get to 75 and the rules at the lender is, well, we don't lend to anybody after 75, you could potentially go to another lender who would lend after 75, or in a worst case scenario, you'd end up having to sell the property and downsize. But I've never heard of that.
I'll find out more about that, because I was really perplexed. I'm like, what is that? So if somebody has been saving maybe, and they have maybe like $6 grand, right? And they want to say get a mortgage in the next 1 year as they work through their credit score, which bank would you recommend them to save their money with? Or just, does that even affect anything, which bank you save with?
Not really. I mean, some people might think that I'm saving my money with Bank of Scotland, and so therefore Bank of Scotland will look better on an application from me. They may well do, but if you think that they're going to look at your mortgage application and you've got a credit score of 400, nobody's going to look at you, I'm afraid. You might. I don't think it will be dependent upon whether you get a mortgage or not with them. What they might say is that as you have been a saver, we might give you a slightly better rate because you're an existing customer. I think that would potentially be well, that's one of the benefit, or one of the potential benefits. The other benefit is that, well, they already know you, and it's all about creating a relationship over a period of time. And I said to you in the break that if you've got a big deposit, let's say lenders ask you 20 questions, and you have to get those 20 questions answered, and you have to answer them correctly. If you have only got a deposit of 5%, they're definitely going to ask you all 20 questions. But if you've got a deposit of 40%, there's less risk. If the property gets repossessed, the bank is still going to be able to sell the property and get their money back. There's more risk if
you have less
they've
part of the
lent you 95% and the place goes down in price. So they're going to ask you all the questions. But with, say, if you've got a 40% deposit, they may not ask you all the questions, or they may ask you all the questions, but the answers that you give, you might get a little bit of leeway purely because you've got a bigger deposit, and that makes sense
financially.
As you come towards the end of our show, sorry Tony, just I think from me, one last final question. So if somebody, and I think you mentioned it earlier on the show, if somebody pays, say the mortgage is 600 and somebody decides maybe this month for the next 1 year I'm going to pay 1,000, are there penalties on that? Or if somebody just decided to end their mortgage and pay,
So you're talking about overpayments. Again, speaking generally, what you tend to find is that a lot of the lenders will allow overpayments up to a maximum of 10% per year. So if your total mortgage is £50,000 and you're paying your mortgage, you could overpay
£5,000
by £5,000 each month, and each year. And then again, it depends very much upon the particular lender. Sometimes that 10% is based off of the original amount borrowed, and some is based upon what that amount is at that
point where you
year.
want to pay.
So it goes down, your 10% diminishes.
Okay. And what if you want to, over that, say, how much do you pay?
So again, it will be within the contract, your mortgage contract, as to what the penalties are going to be. So if in that example you paid £5,000, so you wouldn't have to pay anything on that £5,000. But if you paid anything more than that, say you wanted to pay an extra 1,000, then you would look to see what the early redemption penalties are. And again, talking very much generally, if you've got a 5-year fixed rate and you want to overpay in the first year, it will probably go on a sliding scale of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you're 5%, 4%, 3%, 2%, 1%. And similarly for a 2-year deal, you tend to find in the first year you want to repay, it's 2%. If you want to repay overpay in the second year, then it's 1%. But again, look at the proof is in the pudding, and you need to just look at the T's and C's in the mortgage for sure.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming again. From the first show, you were here on the first show. We said you're gonna be back. You're gonna be back, and you're already back. Thank you so much for an amazing show. A lot of information there from Jonathan, Bricks and Mortar. Could you please on air give them your website, phone number, where you can be reached at, where you're located, maybe?
So Johnny Williams, Bricks and Mortar Mortgages. We're at Crow Road, 620 Crow Road, and we're all the dubs, bricksandmortarmortgages.co.uk. That's the website, and then it's a bit of a long email address, but hopefully you'll have to say it once. Jonathan at bricksandmortarmortgages.co.uk. We're all over the webs, Insta, LinkedIn. Link in with me. That's a good place to find me. Twitter or X, Facebook. We're over everything.
And as well, TikTok. Instagram. I've seen your Instagram. There's a lot of gems. Jonathan is doing a lot of videos, just dropping gems here and there. Go and follow Jonathan and Bricks and Mortar on Instagram as well.
I think it's BAM Mortgages, which is good for sort of Glasgow. Glasgow BAMs.
Thank you so much. That was the Property and Investment Show. We'll see you next Wednesday with another amazing guest. This has been Anthony.
Violet.
And we'll see you next week, Wednesday, same place, same time, Jambo Radio.
Thank you.